Shalom, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Pulse of Israel. Thank everyone for being here, for Dr. Kedar to be sharing his time with us, sharing his insights. Again, Dr. Kedar is an expert on the Middle East and Islam. So as rockets are falling over Israel and in this latest, your insight is really, really important. And again, all of you, I'm Avi Abelo here for the Pulse of Israel here, a voice, a proud Jewish voice in the eternal and ancestral homeland of the Jewish people. If you're interested in continuing to hear my voice in the videos and the interviews that I do with information that the press does not usually give, and voices like Dr. Kedar and opinions that the press does not usually put out there, then please sign up for our newsletter at pulseofisrael.com to ensure that you continue getting our videos. And tonight, this is unbelievable, crazy timing. Rockets are being shot by Hamas, Islamic Jihad. We'll get it. Shalom, Dr. Kedar.
Good evening, Avi. Nice to hear you. Nice to see you here.
Listen, it's always a pleasure. Crazy times. I mean, rockets are being shot by Hamas, Islamic Jihad, whatever. You'll get into it, explaining to us what's going on. But over Tel Aviv now, I've just seen so many videos. They're just coming in. The amount of rockets flying in the sky right now is just crazy, crazy. And even you, I'm not going to say where you live, but even you, where you live, you've heard the sirens, and your buildings had to run for cover. What is going on, Dr. Kedar? What is going on? Who's behind this? Why now? What can you tell us?
Well, Israel is a civilized country fighting the barbarism, the jihadism, which is more or less the same, around us. This is in a nutshell. However, if you want to broaden the scope, Israel has enemies, Islamic enemies, and they don't want us to be here at all. And they made an organization named Hamas, and another one, the Islamic Jihad, and another one, Fatah, and the Front, and all these terror organizations. And here we are in a fight against. Look, the fight against us Jews didn't start today or yesterday. We are here for, who knows, 160 years, where Jews are being murdered, killed, slaughtered, blown up by Arabs and Muslims because they don't want us, even before the state was established. We had many casualties. So, yes, freedom is given only to a nation which is ready to fight for it. And yes, we fight.
But why now? I mean, we've known Iran has been supporting the buildup of Hamas and Islamic Jihad for years. Every few years there are rockets. Israel does what it does. Israel has not yet made the decision to end once and for all the terror from Gaza, right? We know that. Every time it ends on some sort of ceasefire and it allows them to build up with more weapons and more investment in terror infrastructure for the next round. But now it looks, am I wrong? Does it look like this is a different level than what we've seen in other times? They went after Jerusalem. I was in Jerusalem yesterday. I was at the Western Wall Plaza when the sirens went off and rockets fell around the area. Not the Western Wall, but around the Jerusalem area. Now they're going after Tel Aviv. Israel has officially said now this is an act of war, now that they're shooting over the Tel Aviv region, where a number of people have already been killed this evening, earlier today in the south, and that a few people already, well, actually, I don't know if anyone's died tonight. I know they've been injured from the rockets that fallen. What is different now?
Well, what happened today, or the last couple of days, is that Israel does not want to drag it for over 50 years as it was a few years ago. Israel wants to finish it in the beginning. And if you remember those days, the long-range missiles were used by Hamas only deep into the 40th and more days. And Israel started to knock down skyscrapers in Gaza also towards the end. Now they started the launching of the missiles directly to Jerusalem, means they started to use the long-range missiles to Jerusalem in the first minute. So Israel, in the second day, started to knock down skyscrapers which are used by Hamas as army bases. So here we are. We are trying, maybe both sides try to reach the final stage already in the beginning, maybe in order to shorten the time of this round of violence.
But so let's take a step back. I've said, and just this evening I went public saying, we had the Trump presidency, the most pro-Israel presidency administration ever, and Netanyahu did not take advantage of that administration to go after and end the terror from Gaza and Hamas and Islamic Jihad. Now we have a Biden administration, which is basically a continuation of the Obama administration, which is aligning itself with Iran. We're going to have a much more complicated situation to take care of things in Gaza right now. Am I wrong?
Well, for this you have to ask really an expert on the American administration, which I am not. However, if we look at what happened with the American administration during the last couple of months since they started working, as you might know, Abu Mazen, means the head of the Palestinian Authority, announced that he wants to hold elections to the Legislative Council and then to the presidency. After like 15 years, which there were no elections in the PA. And the question is, why all of a sudden he decided to have elections? I believe, and I do have the reason why to believe, that this idea of elections came actually from the Biden administration. In order to shed legitimacy over the PA, as if it is a democratic country, in order to justify the recognition of the United States of America in the Palestinian Authority as a state, after all, it is a democracy. Means that elections actually were intended or invented by the Americans. The idea was invented by the Americans in order to facilitate the recognition of the United States of America under the Biden administration in the Palestinian state. This is what they wanted. However, elections, especially free elections and objective elections, might bring Hamas to power. As it already happened in January 2006, when Hamas won the majority of the seats of the Legislative Council of the Palestinian Authority. So, all of a sudden, some people started to shout, "Hey, how come we have elections in the PA? Hamas might very possibly win the elections." So they started to talk to the American administration. How come you invented such a thing? So they told him to retrieve from this decision and to cancel it. And this actually what happens. This 98% of sureness, this is what happened. It was initiated by the American administration, and then it was canceled by them. Of course, they told Hamas, Abbas to announce it. This shows, if this is correct, and this is actually what happened, this shows that the fact that these people are either rookies and they understand nothing in what happens in the Middle East.
No, you're talking about the Biden administration.
About somebody there who is in charge of the Palestinian file. And I think I know who the man is. So, by the way, he's a Muslim, Arab Muslim.
Okay.
And he acted apparently without consulting with his friends and colleagues. Apparently. So he called Abbas and gave him this idea of elections. So Abbas came out with this. And only after everybody shouted that Hamas might win, other people told that man that he made a mistake. by tipping this idea to Abbas. Meanwhile, Hamas developed all these fantasies about taking the PA over. And now comes Abbas and cancels it. So they got very frustrated. So their frustration today comes out with missiles. You know, whenever somebody in the Arab world is frustrated, he shoots missiles or kills somebody. This is the region which we live in. So they launched missiles at Israel because Israel was against the elections, because Hamas might win the elections. Okay? This is one reason. Second thing, what happened in Sheikh Jarrah. According to the Israeli Supreme Court, some 20 houses have to be returned to their Jewish owners, which were chased out from those buildings in the late 30s because of the riots and the killings in Jerusalem, arranged by the Mufti Haj Amir al-Husseini.
We lost you. We lost you, Dr. Kedar. Say that again. You're referring to Shimon HaTzadik neighborhood, Sheikh Jarrah,
which was populated by Jews until the late 30s of the previous century, and those Jews were forced to leave those assets because their life was in danger because of the Mufti Haj Amir al-Husseini, who incited to kill them. So they had to leave. And later the Jordanians occupied Jerusalem illegally, and they gave those houses to some people. And the Jews, after 1967, started to demand these buildings to get back to them. And it is dragged already for dozens of years. And the court, time and again, had a decision that these people means the Arabs, should leave the houses and give the houses back to the Jews, the owners.
Right.
So the police started to prepare to evacuate, forceful evacuation of these people. But unfortunately, the police decided to do it during the Ramadan. And the Ramadan is very highly charged with religious sentiments in the Islamic world. And this is no time to start dealing with this. If it waited for who knows how many years, it could wait another couple of weeks until after Ramadan. And Ramadan actually finishes tomorrow. So this accumulation of events, also you can add another wave of attacks against Jews, which Arab Palestinian thugs attacked Jews, usually Haredi Jews, by slamming them and kicking them. And they were taking these videos on TikTok and uploaded it to TikTok. And
that's the last interview we did like a few weeks ago. We spoke about that. That was
and they became heroes. So until Jews started to react. And
by the way, before you continue, Dr. Kedar, I just want to give an update. I'm just getting updates from all different sources, and this is from the IDF. Injuries. There's at least one person murdered in Rishon LeZion and 8 seriously injured from different cities, including an 8-year-old girl. Several apartment buildings in Givatayim have been hit. A bus was hit in Cholon. Most had gotten off, but I heard earlier that 3 people were injured. And the Asaf HaRofeh hospital has been hit. Other unconfirmed reports of a shooting attack in the Shomron, a police station set on fire in Akko, and celebrations in many Arab-Israeli communities. All right, that's just an update, live update that I'm just receiving for everyone to know about. So continue.
Look, we had the riots in Lod. We had riots in the Negev. The Bedouin and the Islamic places in Israel are not so convenient to go now.
Wait, so since you raised that already, I mean, I'll go there because I wanted to ask you what the situation now is with the Israeli Arabs. It's much more. We had pogroms. We literally had pogroms across the country last night. Synagogues burnt, Jews lynched in cars, a Bedouin and down south, and Arabs outside of Lod and Ramla burning tires and putting them on main roads, and then stoning the cars that approached and stopped on those roads. You were talking about a horrendous night last night. protests in the streets of Haifa, massive protests, Arab Israeli citizens. How are Israelis supposed to look at coexistence right now with our Arab, Muslim, Israeli citizens when last night there were pogroms taking place across the country?
Pogroms against Jews.
Pogroms against Jews. And by Israeli citizens, right? They don't live in Judea and Samaria. They don't live in Gaza. They're Israeli citizens. They woke up this morning and went to work in supermarkets and building and banks and hospitals. And last night they were doing pogroms against their neighbors.
Look, what happened is that Israel today, in the Arab sector in Israel, is viewed as a very weak country because Israel does not succeed to shape a government, a functioning government, for 2 years already. And it gives Israel an image of very weak country. On the other side, because of the weakness of the government, and Netanyahu especially, he started to empower the Islamic movement, the Ra'am party. And these people who are bursting to the streets, especially the Bedouins in Lod, Ramle, and in the south, are the constituency of Ra'am. And they feel that they are empowered by the fact that the Israeli government needs them in order to run the country because of the disputes and struggles and feuds within the Israeli political system, unfortunately.
And just to clarify for most people, it's not just Netanyahu was courting them to join or assist him in supporting his government, but the anti-Netanyahu coalition was also courting this party to join them. So they were looking, they were being courted to be included in any government that would be established.
Right. So they actually came out during the last, let's say, year with a very strong feeling that they can, because everybody needs them and nobody will dare doing anything against them because their party is being needed either by Netanyahu or by his opponents. So this atmosphere against themselves actually gave them the power to run to the streets and to
lynch Jews and attack their neighbors.
Yes, because when they see what happens in Jerusalem, they want also to be part of it. And since Israel cannot do anything against this, so they are here as well. Don't forget that the Islamic movement increased their Islamic inclination and the Islamic sentiments. And when anything happens in the Al-Aqsa Mosque in Jerusalem, the incitement actually pushes these people to the streets. And again, activists of the Islamic movement are behind these riots. And this Islamic movement is in the Knesset, surprisingly, being flattered by both sides of the political system because they cannot get their act together. Those politicians.
But again, I want to take you down to the Joe Schmo on the street who was just living in his house, where yesterday he lived peacefully with his Arab Muslim neighbor, whether in Lod, in Ramla, down south, or in Haifa, and all of a sudden last night his own neighbors were out lynching and destroying their cars and shooting stuff at their homes and burning their synagogues and shooting to destroy a police station, I think in Lod. How are regular Israelis supposed to wake up this morning, tomorrow morning, and be thinking about these Israeli citizens who are their Arab Muslim neighbors who until last night they lived peacefully with? What does next week look? What does next month look?
It's not easy at all, and both sides will have to recalculate the route. Otherwise, they will not be able to live with each other. However, when we come to Lod especially, we have to remember, and in the Negev as well, that these people who are Bedouins in their origin, they think that the place belongs to them. Although they came during the 60s from the Negev to Lod, they claim or they think that the place belongs to them. And Jews are settlers in Lod. This is what they say today, and I heard it on TV, that Arabs in Lod say that the Jews are settlers. Avi, you understand this? Because from their point of view, Jews are settlers even if they settle in Tel Aviv.
Right. No, 100%. Again, just to clarify so people understand, usually the argument against Israel, we're occupying the West Bank, right? Judea and Samaria, which is our ancestral biblical homeland where the story of the Jewish people developed, where all the Bible stories took place in Judea and Samaria, aka the West Bank. But the world calls us settlers, right? So because trying to make it seem like we don't belong here. Like, go back, Jews, stop living in Judea and Samaria, go live in Tel Aviv. Go live in Lod, go live in Haifa, go live in Akko. And here what Dr. Kedar is telling us, no, these Arab Muslims, and you're referring to the Bedouin right now, are calling Jews living in Jaffa, Akko, Lod, Haifa, Tel Aviv, referring to us as settlers, meaning that it's not about us living in Judea and Samaria, what they like to call the West Bank. It's about us living here at all. They don't want us here at all.
Yes, because we, according to their view, we belong in France, in Germany, in the United States, or in Auschwitz as well. That's where we belong.
Right.
Good morning, huh? Sometimes we have to wake up to listen to what they say.
Right. It's always just a few weeks ago, I saw a video of an Israeli. I'm trying to remember, an Israeli reporter. He's a reporter for the Arab sector. Ohad, I forgot his name. Whatever it is. Ohad Chemo. Thank you. Ohad Chemo was interviewing, and the Arabs screaming at him, "Go back to Europe." He goes, one side of my family is from Iraq, the other side of my family is from Morocco. Why are you telling me to go back to Europe? Right? And the Arab was stumped. He goes, "Well, get out of here. You don't belong here." The Arab had no clue what to say, but Ohad Chemo, live on television, received the true Arab perspective that no Jew belongs here, no matter where you're from, even though we are originally from here, and yet we were spread all around the world, only to finally come home to our homeland.
Now, another thing we have to understand, why the PA, which also pours jet oil on this fire, why they actually concentrate on Jerusalem. As you may know, they keep claiming that Jerusalem should be the capital of the Palestinian state. Why? When was Jerusalem a capital of any Arab state? Was never. But look at what they produce this scarf on one side, and this is by the PLO. This is the flag of the PLO. On one side it says Al-Quds Lana, means Jerusalem is ours. Since when? But on the other side, they show the map of Palestine from the river to the sea.
Right.
Palestine will be free, and this is also by the PLO. And they actually, this is one thing. On one side Jerusalem, on one side Palestine, and they know the connection. If they will have Jerusalem, they will have the whole country. This is why the riots in Jerusalem actually inflamed the whole thing all over the country, because they know that if they have Zion, there will be no Zionism. Because
let me ask you this.
Without Zion.
And let me ask you this. So it seems like what you're saying goes with what I was telling people yesterday. I was in Jerusalem. I was supposed to go up to the Temple Mount. I went to Jerusalem in the morning, hoping to go up to the Temple Mount to celebrate Jerusalem Day, right? Jerusalem Day, 54 years ago, the Jewish state of Israel liberated Jerusalem from the Jordanian, the illegal occupying power of Jordan, that made Judea and Samaria and half of Jerusalem Judenrein, Jew-free, expelling all the Jews, and we liberated the Temple Mount. And yet the Israeli government appeased and capitulated to the Arab violence and said, okay, they forbid Jews from going up to the Temple Mount. Then, after that, we were supposed to march through the old city of Jerusalem, through the quarter that's called the Muslim quarter every year since 1967. The traditional march for Jerusalem Day is we march through the old city, through the Muslim quarter as well. And the government of Israel decided, no, we're going to capitulate. We're going to appease the Arab Muslims who were threatening violence and terror. And my message was, guys, the more you appease and capitulate to them, well, that just empowers and enables them to use more violence. And in the end, what do we get at the end of the day? At the end of the day, we got rockets from Gaza shooting all over the country.
Right.
Like, appeasement
and riots and pogroms.
And riots, riots by Israeli Arabs all over the country, pogroms. Right.
Let me point out a point which people are not aware of the hypocrisy of those Muslims here in Israel, the citizens of Israel. They were denied to go to the Temple Mount, to the Al-Aqsa Mosque, as they call it, for 19 years, between 1948 and 1967, when East Jerusalem was under Jordanian occupation. Jews, Christians, Muslims, means Israeli citizens from any religion, were not allowed to go to the holy places in the eastern part of Jerusalem.
I didn't know that included Israeli Muslims.
It included Israeli Muslims as well.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Only the fact that Israel liberated Jerusalem from the Jordanian occupation enabled jihadists like Sheikh Raed Salah, the head of the Islamic movement, the northern part of this, and all the other Jew haters to go to the Al-Aqsa Mosque because Israel liberated it from the Jordanian occupation. Hypocrisy? You can call it hypocrisy.
Wow. Listen, I just want to share with you, former President Donald Trump just put out a statement. I want to hear what you have to say about this, Dr. Kedar. And I'm reading this in Hebrew, so I'll be translating it. When I was president, my administration was looked upon as the administration of peace, and Israel's enemies knew that the United States of America would stand by Israel's side and would do anything to help Israel if Israel would be attacked. Under Biden, the world is now upside down, more violent, not stable, and it's because of the weakness of Biden and not hit full support for the state of Israel. What do you have to say about that?
Well, he's right. He's right. The mistakes which the Biden administration already have done, as I told you about the elections, are very dangerous to the stability of this region. And who knows what mistakes they were going to do with China, with other superpowers like Russia. Who knows?
Wow. Unbelievable. All right. So going back to, again, anyone who's joining, who just joined, rockets are falling on Israel. I don't know if they're still falling at this moment, but a number of injured, a number of killed. A hospital was attacked. Talking about a hospital that was attacked, right? This house I'm referring to was hit by a rocket. Asaf Rofeh Hospital was hit by a rocket tonight. Ready for this? This morning, Asaf Rofeh Hospital was treating Arabs injured in the pogrom last night that they did against the Jews in Lod, right? And the Lod neighbors this morning came and attacked the hospital, right? I'm not talking about riots. I'm talking about people coming and throwing stones and attacking doctors and medical professionals, including Arabs, because the staff in all hospitals in Israel are Jews and Arabs. And they came in and they attacked the hospital. They attacked the hospital and the hospital staff that included Arabs, Israeli Arab citizens who are medical staff. Again, can you help us understand? Even going to the extent of attacking a hospital and attacking their own Arab doctors who work together with Jewish doctors and treating their own Arab patients, how can people understand this, Dr. Kedar?
Well, I really don't know what happened there in the hospital by these people who attacked the doctors. What were their complaints? I have no idea. But the fact that this hospital and some other locations in Israel were attacked is actually because these locations are adjacent to army bases.
Oh, okay.
So they're actually targeting the army bases. Look, it happened already in Lebanon, the war with Lebanon. If you remember, the Hezbollah launched missiles against Haifa, and 8 workers of the train got killed by a missile which hit a train, or actually the garage of the trains in Haifa. It was attacked by Hezbollah, and 8 workers of the train were killed on the spot.
Right.
The question is, what did Hezbollah have against the train? No. 200 meters from that train station or train garage, there is an army base, the Haifa harbor.
Right.
This is what they meant. And it hit the train.
Wow. I want to try to share a file to show people what was going on in Israel tonight over Tel Aviv. There was
a dogfight above Tel Aviv between a group of missiles which were launched from Gaza and a group of Iron Dome missiles which intercepted them.
Yeah, it looked like a movie. It looked like Star Wars movie taking place. I'm trying to find it here. I got okay. Ready? Let me bring it up right now. It's just it's crazy what we're experiencing. Here we go. It's crazy to understand that this was actually.
I will explain it. There was a very, very big question about the Iron Dome, and this was a secret which Israel kept very strictly. How many missiles this system can engage with at a second or 2 seconds, means at the same time, simultaneously. And Hamas tried to find out whether it's 5 or 10 or 20 or 30. Because let's say, if the limit is 20, if they launched 40, 20 will be intercepted and 20 will pass and hit the ground where it meant to. And
before you continue, I mean, the update I have, over 600 missiles so far have been shot on Israeli citizens. 3 have been killed.
Avi, I'm talking simultaneously.
Right, I know.
As one group of missiles, and Israel kept it in secret. How many missiles can be dealt with simultaneously? What happened is that Hamas tried by launching dozens of missiles simultaneously
to find out
in order to check how many missiles can the Iron Dome intercept and knock down, and how many will not be dealt with and hit the targets. And this is what you saw.
Right. Meaning, so now they're smarter. Now they know, basically. It's no secret anymore, you're trying to say.
I don't know. I don't know, because it depends on the information which Hamas has about how many missiles actually came to the area where this movie was taken, and how many were hit and how many were not. I don't know if they can analyze from this movie what really happened there, means all the details. Definitely you can see the hits, because when an iron hits an iron, you see this explosion. So definitely the Iron Dome hit, as much as I understand, most of them already in the air. And those unfortunate people who were injured and killed, unfortunately. Here you can see the Iron Dome missiles going up and hitting, or meeting and hitting the missiles which came from Gaza.
Right. So what about this, Dr. Kedar?
I think I saw around 20 explosions. Means that 20 missiles were hit. Right. Okay?
Yeah.
So if they launched 40, 20 were knocked down, and 20 continued their journey to kill people.
How much is Iran behind what's going on right now? Earlier you were saying it's Hamas getting out its frustration that there's no elections. They weren't able to usurp power via the democratic process that would have allowed them to take over power. How much is Iran behind the go-ahead of this latest round?
Wholeheartedly. Because the combination or the axis between Iran and Qatar actually is the axis behind Hamas and the Islamic Jihad in Gaza. And no doubt they couldn't give such a fight without the Iranian and the Qatari support. So, and these two countries, means Qatar supports the Muslim Brotherhood, means Hamas, wholeheartedly. And Iran supports Hamas because Hamas is part of the Muslim Brotherhood, which are the enemies of Saudi Arabia. Okay? Although Hamas are Sunni and Iran is Shia, yet the Shia Iran supports Sunni Hamas because Hamas belongs to the Muslim Brotherhood, which is the enemy of the Saudis. Get me?
Yeah.
So here we are. So this is one side. Another support they get from Erdogan, from Turkey. And as you might know, Turkey hosts some activists of Hamas, some terrorists of Hamas, who were released in the Shalit swap, and they had to leave the country because of the agreement in the swap, and they found asylum in Turkey, and Turkey gives them shelter, and they arrange all kinds of actions of Hamas, especially in Judea and Samaria, where Hamas cannot function because of Israel and the PA are not letting it to root itself into the Judea and Samaria. Yet they do believe that in elections they will win because of the corruption of the PA. So here we are. We have to fight this Hamas and the other jihadists, while other countries like the United States of America doesn't get it, what happens in this region. They think like Americans. They are clueless about the Middle East, and they try to shape policies when you are clueless about the culture and the history and the motivations and goals and objectives of organizational states in this region. Iran is a country which already devastated Yemen, Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, and it's not the end of the list, because they are ready to do it in other countries as well. And they cannot even wait to continue this in Bahrain, in Saudi Arabia, in Jordan, here. No doubt, they are willing to take the countries one after the other.
And all with the support of the Obama, Biden, Harris administration that is realigning U.S. policy with Iran.
Right, and this is the problem. The American administration, which is supposed to be some kind of protector for the Western civilization, actually plays to the hands of the most vile enemies of the Western civilization.
So now let me ask you from a different perspective. What is this latest round of violence, especially with the Temple Mount, Al-Aqsa, being a focal point? What's this going to do with the relations between Israel and the UAE and Bahrain?
Well, first of all, don't forget that the Abraham Accords with Bahrain and the UAE was under the blessing of Saudi Arabia. You remember that?
Yes.
The problem is that Saudi Arabia, like 2 or 3 weeks ago, actually repented and returned to the Iranian bosom.
Right.
Because of the attacks which Saudi Arabia was suffering from Yemen, from the Houthis in Yemen, who actually used ballistic missiles. Ballistic missiles, Avi. These people have no shoes. These people have no shoes.
Which people are you referring to? Which people?
The Houthis in Yemen.
But yet they have ballistic missiles. No
most
shoes,
of
but
them are
ballistic missiles.
illiterate. They are illiterate. They live in the mountains for who knows how many centuries, if not millennia. And all of a sudden, they have ballistic missiles. Okay? So actually, it's the Iranians who give them the missiles. And I believe personnel as well, people who were there in Yemen, and actually launched those missiles against Saudi Arabia from the Yemenite soil. And they hit the Saudi oil production. They hit airports. They hit army bases. And actually, Saudi Arabia was hit by the Iranians from Yemen, from other countries, and Iraq as well, without anyone saying a word. America abandoned Saudi Arabia altogether because what apparently or allegedly was done to Khashoggi in Istanbul in October of 2018 means that American global policy, or at least the regional policy, was actually revolving around one person, a journalist who wrote some things about the regime in Saudi Arabia. This is not a way which a superpower should act. A superpower should have global considerations, regional considerations, not directing itself by the fate of one person, good as he could be. By the way, Khashoggi was, and I'm the last one on earth to preach for his assassination, but he was a Muslim Brotherhood activist. He was actually supporting ISIS in his writings, implicitly, because ISIS was against the Saudi regime, which Khashoggi was also against. And Khashoggi against Mohammed bin Salman would say anything. Okay, so he was not a nice man to begin with. Yet I'm more than sure that he didn't deserve a death sentence, no doubt. His assassination was a vile thing to do, and nobody should do it. Yet, having said that, to revolve around him while you shape the American foreign policy, this is not a way which a superpower should behave. And unfortunately, this is what happens. They throw Saudi Arabia under the bus, under the Iranian bus. And they didn't see how during the last months, especially since Biden came to the White House, how Iran is crashing Saudi Arabia by the proxies from Yemen and from other countries as well. And they knew it because the American intelligence knows this very well. But again, the Arabs and Muslims who serve in the administration hate Saudi Arabia because they are all Muslim Brotherhood. And this is why they helped Iran, or they helped Biden pushing the Saudis under the bus. So Saudi Arabia understood that they have no other choice but to go to the Iranians, to repent, to lick their shoes, and to agree to whatever the Iran imposes on them. And this is what happened during the last, let's say, month, more or less. Now tell me, Avi, what do you think? If Saudi Arabia, the big power of the Arab Gulf, surrenders to Iran, how long will the UAE survive if the Iranians will tell them, hey guys, either you cancel your relations with Israel or else bear the consequences?
So you're saying it's only a matter of time?
In my view, it's only a matter of time. The same thing with Bahrain. If Saudi Arabia surrendered and succumbed to the desires of the mullahs in Iran, will the United Arab Emirates act in another way? Are they more powerful than the Saudis? They are closer to Iran. They are much more vulnerable than Iran. And just to tell you, Iran has already occupied 3 islands in the Persian Gulf, which legally belong to the United Arab Emirates. Have you heard about this?
No.
The names of these islands is Tunb, the big, Tumb, the small, and Abu Musa. Okay? And nobody cares. And nobody even dares to challenge the Iranians for occupying these 3 islands. But here, for the full disclosure, I must admit, those islands were occupied already by the Shah, before the mullahs. Yet, it doesn't legitimize for the mullahs to hold these islands. So, here we are. We are facing a situation where the camps of the Middle East are much more sharply divided between the Iranian coalition, which includes Iran, Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, Gaza, and Yemen, against the Saudi coalition, which includes Saudi Arabia, means included until a month ago, included Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, Jordan, Israel, and Egypt. These were the 2 coalitions. But now, the backbone of the Saudi coalition, which is Saudi Arabia, actually crossed the lines, and now it is in bed with the Iranians, although they might not like it, because the alternative is to be destroyed by the Iranians,
right?
And with the consent of the Americans,
right?
And this is why they decided to surrender to the Iranian demands. Okay, so this is the situation. And when Iran, the supporter of Hamas, becomes more powerful because of the succumbing of Saudi Arabia, this gives Hamas the chutzpah to launch so many missiles at Israel, 600 more or less, within 2 or 3 days. What do you think? What do you think, that they will liberate Palestine with these missiles? All they do is bringing misery, death, injuries to the poor Gazans who are occupied by Hamas, who are held hostages by Hamas, who serve as human shields for Hamas. And nobody in the world in general, and in the American administration in particular, says anything against the alliance of Iran, Hamas, Houthis in Yemen, their friends in Iraq and in Syria, and above everything, Hezbollah in Lebanon,
right,
which is another terror organization.
right.
And it is mind-boggling that the bastion of democracy in the Western civilization does not care about the devastation which Iran spreads all over the Middle East, not to mention the oppression which the Iranian regime is using against its own citizens.
Right, but it's even worse. You've said it yourself. It's not that the American administration, the Obama, Biden, Harris foreign policy doesn't care. This is the foreign policy they want. They want Iran to do this. They are supporting Iran to do this. Which is even more horrendous to internalize. But so going back to what you were saying before, Dr. Kedar, I just have a follow-up question, a very important follow-up question. If the United States of America, the Obama, Biden, Harris policy is allowing and supporting Iran to overtake all these Middle Eastern countries, and Saudi Arabia is now surrendered to Iran, and the Abraham Accords only time are also going to surrender to Iran. What chance does Israel have in stopping the Iran-sponsored terror against us from Gaza if in the end, even if the United States administration right now under Biden is giving us lip service that we have a right to defend ourselves, but so long as Iran is backing it and the United States is backing Iran and everything it's doing in the Middle East, what chance do we have to stop it?
Well, for this you need a good government and a good prime minister here in Israel, and you need, guts as well, and some chutzpah as well, to tell the Americans the truth. But for this, start with a few politicians here in Israel who should get their act together and start running the country in a way which we are used to, and not as they behaved for the last 2 years.
So let me ask differently. Let me ask the question differently. Right now, Prime Minister is Benjamin Netanyahu. Let's say there's a government. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu calls Dr. Moti Kedar on your cell phone, your mobile phone right now. Moti, what should I do to stop the terror, the Iran-sponsored terror by Hamas, Islamic Jihad in Gaza? What do you tell the Prime Minister, whoever the Prime Minister is?
Well, I would tell the Prime Minister that that he should start talking to the Hamas leaders as the next target. Not only the fighters or those who launch missiles or their commanders. He should say very clearly, I am after this area of the body of Yahya Sinwar or all the other leading people of Hamas. Read our lips. That's what he should say. We are after you personally. Wherever you are, you'll be afraid of us, because you will never know where and when and what will explode right near you and bring you to heaven or to hell, which is closer for you. This is what Netanyahu or any other Israel Prime Minister, this is the only thing which will deter these thugs, because they do not want to be shaheeds. They send the others to be shaheeds, means martyrs. They by themselves want to survive. They want to live. They want to flourish. They want to make money. Look how many billions made this Khaled Mash'al in the Emirates. So here we are.
Okay, wait, but I'm going to push you on that. I'm going to push you on that. The Prime Minister said, Moti, great advice. We're doing it. The next day, Israel takes out those heads that you just mentioned. But wait a second. Iran still wants to go after Israel. They still have the mid-level people they could push up, whether Hamas, Islamic Jihad. You're saying that's it? Take out the leaders and it's going to end?
No. Whenever a missile is being launched towards Israel, Israel will target the connection between the head and the shoulders of the head of Hamas. So they will recalculate their route, no doubt. Because the leaders do not want to die. They want to send others to die.
No, I hear you. I'm just want to pick your brain as best as possible. The head's Israel takes out the head. The next head decides not to shoot any missiles.
Good.
But Iran's still funneling money and building up for the next round. So how does that stop it?
Well, Israel should say, if we know that you develop A, B, and C, you have 24 hours to destroy everything. Otherwise, we target you personally. You don't argue with them. You just tell them what they are demanded to do.
It sounds like basically what you're saying is, 1, you threaten the heads, 2, you take out the heads if necessary, and 3, anytime they do anything that's about developing and building up weapons, arsenal, you take care of it immediately. And don't play around like unfortunately Israel's been playing around since 2005 and let them build up until they use it, and then
you don't let the whole thing ferment.
All right. Any other insights that you feel we didn't touch upon that you're able to tell us right now about what we're witnessing, what we're experiencing here in Israel right now, Dr. Kedar?
Look, freedom is being given only to these people, to people who want and are ready to defend it. Freedom is not given for free. We Jews lived not in freedom for millennia. We fought in order to gain our freedom. Here we are. If we don't preserve our freedom by fighting, we will have no freedom.
Yep, 100%. And I just want to throw in a piece of good news.
Just to remind you.
Yeah.
When we did not have a freedom, we had gas chambers waiting for us.
I think it was President Ronald Reagan who said that freedom is only a step away for being lost. Something to that in that context. But yeah, and here in our region in the Middle East, where the Western world does not understand, so especially in the Middle East, if we want to ensure that we have peace, well, we have to make sure our enemies know we are prepared for war to defeat them. Only then will we have peace.
Peace is given in the Middle East only to the invincible.
Right. And just to give some people a good update, because of the rocket attacks earlier, I think there are no rocket attacks right now. I'm not seeing them in any alerts going on or in any of my updates. But because of the rocket attacks earlier, Ben Gurion Airport was shut down. I don't know exactly for how long, but as of 10 minutes ago, flights have now resumed to Ben Gurion Airport after it was briefly closed due to the massive rocket attacks that were also going over Ben Gurion Airport. In addition to that, I'm just going through live updates right now. Prime Minister Netanyahu had a live briefing, and he said Hamas paid and will continue to pay a heavy price for their attacks. This campaign will take time, but we will restore security to the people of Israel. And Defense Minister Benny Gantz added a promise to Israeli citizens: we will bring the quiet and safety back for the long term. Towers will continue to crumble. There are a lot of targets in line. This is just the beginning. And IDF's Chief of Staff, Aviv Kochafi, says that over 500 sites in Gaza have been struck so far by the IDF. The terror groups in Gaza will pay an even heavier price than they have already paid. We are ready for this battle. And again, most Israelis are like looking at our leadership and like, I'll just talk for them. We have enough of you talking that you're ready for this battle. End it already. Why every few years do we have to go through this time and time again? And it's Gaza. We had the 6-day war. We just celebrated the miraculous 6-day war. We beat back the 3 major armies in the Middle East 54 years ago: Syria, Egypt, and Jordan in 6 days. And yet, tiny little Gaza, just with a terror organization, has been backed by Iran, has been holding Israel by the neck for now close 20 years around.
Well, Avi, here you have to mention the big difference. Though that war, 67, we fought against armies. And against armies, you can fight. You can destroy them. Here, you fight a terror organization which is hiding within civil neighborhoods. You are very, very much limited. You cannot use heavy weapons, and if you use it, it has to be very pinpointed. It is totally different war. If Hamas had an army with tanks, and cannons and whatever, it would have been the easiest target for the IDF to attack and destroy. But they have no standard army. like in every other normal country. And
I accept everything you're saying. I know that. I know 100%. The one point I do want to add, and again, you can address this as well, because the government of Israel did not take care of the problems of Hamas from the beginning. I'm a big proponent of the Rudy Giuliani philosophy of policing. You don't wait for the big crimes. You take care of the little crimes, and you stop the little crimes before those little criminals become big criminals. And here we didn't take care of Hamas when they were just using handmade rockets. And then when Israel pulled out in 2005 and Arik Sharon and all of his big supporters said, no, 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 they shoot one rocket at Israel and we will go in and take over the place again. Well, they've shot more than one rocket and Israel has never done anything. And the longer we take to take care of Hamas and stop Hamas, the stronger they become, the more technology they get, the more support they get from Iran. Now we're dealing with the Biden administration. With each day, it'll be harder because of the support potentially of Biden's support of Iran. So with each day we push off taking care of it, the harder it is for Israel to take care of. And that's just my critique of the Israeli leadership since I guess the 2000 around when Hamas began to be this huge problem in Gaza.
Avi, before we finish, I would like to point out to a new application, which I'm involved in the production of this application, named the Newsrael. Newsrael, Newsrael, which gives 24/7 news about Israel and about the Middle East, and all kinds of aspects, history, archaeology, of course, news. And I highly recommend to your viewers to download this application and to use it. And I think that the Pulse of Israel should be also part of the content which we bring in this Newsrael application.
Yes, for sure. Everyone, please look out for the app, for the Newsreel application. Dr. Moti Kedar is involved in it. So anything Dr. Kedar is involved in is definitely something you should be looking out and getting involved and getting information from. And Pulse of Israel is part of it. Obviously, I'll put in my plug as well to continue getting all of our videos from Pulse of Israel. The best thing is to sign up for our newsletter at pulseofisrael.com. But yes, two great places to get true, hard-hitting information with the truth about Israel that establishment media, both abroad and in Israel, does not give to the public. So pulseofisrael.com and the Newsreel app for your mobile. Go, sign up, download, and continue being inspired and educated with true information that nobody is really being fed by the establishment media, which has a different agenda than actually informing people with the truth. So Dr. Kedar, thank you so much for your insight as always.
Thank you, Aviv, for giving me the pulpit. And let's hope that things will be better in the next session.
Please God that this latest round should end quickly with as much damage to Hamas as possible. I don't believe it's going to end. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and the Israeli government is not going to end it. It's going to continue to the next round, but at least as much damage as possible, as quickly as possible, with the least amount of innocent people killed as possible. Everyone pray. And again, I'll just leave with the message I tell my mother all the time. She says, Avi, what's going on? When is this going to end? When is this going to end? And I tell my mother, Ima, the Hebrew word for mother, it's going to get a lot worse before it gets better. But it will get better. But unfortunately, we have to go through the stage of it getting worse before we get to that better. So hopefully this is part of the stage of it getting worse before we end up being blessed for when it gets better. Dr. Kedar, stay healthy, stay safe. And until next time, thank you very much.
You too, Avi. Take care.
Everybody, thank you once again for joining me on the Pulse of Israel here in our eternal and ancestral homeland, the Jewish people. I hope you enjoyed this episode with Dr. Kedar. Fabulous insight, as always. And yes, download the Newsreel app. Go to pulseofisrael.com and sign up for our video newsletters so you can get them, because social media censorship is growing. Not everyone can get our stuff all the time. So signing up on the website, pulseofisrael.com, is the best way. Shalom from Israel. Prayers to all of us everywhere, all over the world. We should all be safe and healthy, and looking forward to a more peaceful future. And remember, God is in charge. We do our best. We have to be the best people we can be. We have to educate ourselves, educate our children, have the best families, but based on truth, based on faith. Let's make the world a better place. And hopefully, with God's help, we will go through these hard times as well. And as Dr. Kedar mentioned, we are the Jewish people. We are 2,000 years surviving persecution, exile, persecution, exile, persecution, exile. Like we say on the Passover holiday, in each and every generation, there are people who want to destroy us. They always fail. We are still here. So Hamas, Iran, Palestinian Authority, they're not going to succeed. It's going to hurt. It's going to be painful. We're going to still be standing afterwards. God bless you all. Shalom. And thanks for watching from the eternal and undivided from the eternal and ancestral homeland of the Jewish people, the land of Israel, here in the Judean hills.
Pulse of Israel, frontline videos from the Holy Land. Support our work by donating today.